and welcome to the Nobody Asked to Be Guy show. I'm your host, Melvin Lars. Listen, guys, we're running a little late. I see we have some guests here already, and we do apologize that we're running late. However, you know Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. However, you won't even realize that we were late because we have such a dynamic show and the dynamic personality of Miss Leah World Traveler Miller. She's featured in Griot Republic Magazine, Nia Magazine, Heart and Soul Magazine, Times Union, the leading newspaper, of course, for the New York State Capital District. She's also on MadameNoir.com, GovLoop.com, BlacklandMarriedWithKids.com, Blavity.com, HuffingtonPost.com, TheGriot.com, the Dr. Vibe Show. Most of you guys know Dr. Vibe, I would think. If you don't know Dr. Vibe, you need to get to know that brother.
Yes.
There's so many things here. I'm going to ask Leah to continue to share with us as we get started, but I do want to say this. She's also the CEO and the COO and CEO and co-founder of Peace and Purpose, a social enterprise that serves as a catalyst and launch pad for female entrepreneurs worldwide to expand new markets. That's wow. She's to help them grow their businesses and in the process improve their own lives and in turn their communities. So Leah's a wife and mother too, current Foreign Service Officer diplomat, and lives in the DC metro area. You can find her online at www.leahworldtraveler.com or at Leah World Traveler on social media, IG, FB, of course, Instagram. You know the IG stands for Instagram, FB is for Facebook, and at Leah World Travels on Twitter. So without further ado, we want to introduce you guys to Miss Leah World Traveler. She is a phenomenal person, and we also want to caution you that if you hear me interrupting her, we have LA, who's Laura Ann Wade, who will be joining us as well, and also Mrs. Cynthia Clark, who's a city council person in the city of Morringsport, Louisiana. She's an LSU graduate, and she will be joining us as well. And I want to say to Mrs. Clark and to LA, if you happen to be in our guest spot, once you come on, just grab those spots. They're waiting for you. So with that stated, without further ado, we want to again introduce Miss Leah World Traveler. I'm not even going to say the last name because we have become so politically incorrect and correct. And we call people by their first names as if we are buddies that talk on the phone every day.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, hey, at this
so
point,
Leah, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, it's my pleasure. And again, thank you for including me in this amazing conversation. I'm really looking forward to talking about it. And I'm really grateful that you thought of me to be a part of this conversation.
Well, thank you so very much. I see Cynthia is coming in.
Great.
And that's great that Cynthia is coming in. We're trying to give her an opportunity. But Leah, listen, I just want to say that all of the times that I've watched you and your can I say your comrade in crime on the Dr. Vibe show.
Yes, Dr. Tachi. Yes, you can.
Tachi. And you guys, listen, you guys really bring the pain, and that's why I know our guests are going to be really served really well tonight as you're here. And one last time, let me say to Cynthia, I see you here, so please just grab one of those spots and come on in with us. And we have a guest. I can't tell who you are, but if it's LA, I know you know how this process works. Come on in. So we're going to get started. We're going to jump right in. We're not going to wait for the other ladies. They will be here and they will also join us. But Miss Leah, I know, especially for men, if you ask 100 men their definition of what a man is, you will get 100 definitions. So I decided, as the author of Mothers and Their Men, and talking about mothers and their sons, I want to ask the mothers, what would be your definition, a generic definition of a mom?
Gosh, I mean, that is such a loaded question too. And I definitely feel like, just like you said, if you ask 100 men the same question, you're going to get 100 different answers. I think it's the same thing. If you ask a mom what makes a good mom, you're going to get 100 different answers, because I think society says that mothers are one thing, but in reality, we're so much more than that. And I think it's different for every person. But I would say in general, mothers are the first educators, the first nurturers, the first everything, the first person that your children fall in love with, the first person that they need, the person that they gravitate towards, sort of the one who is the sun in the family, and as in like the sun in the sky. And I feel like everybody else in the family, including the father, kind of orbit around the mom. So the mom sort of sets the tone of the family, how the family is moving, what direction they're going in. And even though men, of course, have their very important role to play, and it should be ideally a partnership, regardless of whether or not mom and dad are together, it really is all about moms. In motherhood, I think that we are the ones who teach our children about life, about becoming themselves. We're the first person they confide in. We're their best friends. And we're also the person who has to be the one who keeps our kids in line. So I feel like moms are sort of a catch-all. We're not just caretakers, but we're educators as well.
Great. And I'm sure once our other mothers get here, I'm sure they're going to agree with that wholeheartedly. Now, I do need to just again, because I failed to share with our audience, our topic tonight is challenges and celebrations of motherhood. And I need our audience to know that. So
yes,
since we've informed our audience of that,
yes,
if you will allow me,
of course,
will you share?
Yeah.
One of your happiest, just one of your happiest moments and one of your scariest moments as being a parent?
Sure. Gosh, there's so many to share, because for me, it's not always the big moments. It's the little ones that sort of make up my relationship with my kids, because it's the small things. Like right now, one of them is literally right next to me, and she's being a good girl and promising that she's quiet so mommy can do this call. And to me, that's really special, because I want them to be able to see me as more than just mommy. I think that that's important for them to see me as a whole person, because I think one thing that children struggle with is seeing their parents as real people. We always just take for granted that mom and dad will be there for us, take care of us. We need money. They're going to give us that $10. They're going to take us here, take us there. But I think it's important that my children see me as a functional adult, and they see me in all aspects of life, as a professional, as, you know, a blogger, a writer, speaker, and also as their mom and dad. But in terms of my happiest moments, gosh, I mean, seeing my son the first time playing baseball and hitting his first at bat, you know, making not even necessarily a home run, but the first time he made contact, and just knowing how excited he was in that moment. The first time my daughter was brave enough to jump into the pool by herself, you know, without me, knowing that I helped contribute to her feeling of safety and security, that she could do that, and boosting her confidence. You know, being able to, despite being a very busy working mom, being able to show up at their recitals and their activities and being there for that, and showing up in a meaningful way in their lives. My scariest moment, I think, even though it was only for a few moments, when I was, a few times this has happened, unfortunately, when we've been shopping in a store, somehow they get out of my line of sight, and they're too young to have their own phones. At least I don't believe that they should have them at this stage. So I couldn't just call them and be like, hey, where are you guys? Meet me back in the produce aisle. So I started to panic, because in this day and age, it only takes a second for your child to be taken for a lifetime, taken away from you. So just that feeling of absolute fear and terror I've never experienced in any other aspect of my life. And I think it's the only kind of terror and fear you can feel if you're a parent.
Wow. Well, listen, I hear you very, very loudly. And actually, it's a perfect segue to my next question.
Okay.
What are some of the unspoken challenges?
Gosh, so many. I mean, this probably won't be very... Yeah. I'd say this probably isn't the most politically correct, but honestly, there's times when I just get so frustrated with the constant demands of parenting. I mean, I think you expect to be responsible for this little life that you've created, but I just don't think that people are truly prepared for what that actually means. And even though I think that fathers obviously give a lot and they sacrifice a lot, I think it's a different level of sacrifice that you get from a mom. Mm-hmm. I think moms will give their last. Moms won't eat because they need their children to eat. Not saying that men won't do it, but I just think moms in general, they're more willing to sacrifice in that way. And I think that it can be a challenge for women, period, all the way down through the ages, but especially in the 21st century, where most households have to be two-income households in order to survive. but still the burden of rearing children and parenting falls to the mom. There's still sort of this societal expectation that, all right, you've worked a full day, but now come home, make sure the house is clean, do the laundry, cook dinner, and do homework with the kids. And don't forget, you got to take Junior over to his baseball game, and daughter has a dance recital or whatever. Again, this isn't to say that fathers don't do their parts and they don't pitch in, but I still think there's an expectation that it's the mom who's going to be doing these things and not necessarily the dad. And so I think one of the things that I did not know or did not sign up for was just how all-consuming parenting really is. Even when I'm at work and I'm, focused on what I'm doing, if I know something's not right on the home front, it's really difficult to focus. It's really difficult to concentrate. If you know something's going wrong with your child, you can't help but think about them, worry about them. And it's constant. I've definitely lost sleep several nights over the course of being a mom where I've worried about, how can I support my child in this situation? What do I need to do? And I think a lot of some of the unseen challenges too is just not knowing what to do. There's no book. There's no guide that you can follow to be a good parent. I think you just follow your instincts. But you also can only, give what you know and what you've experienced. So I definitely think it's hard sort of figuring out how to deal with things as a parent, especially things that our children experience that we may or may not have experienced when we were young.
Wow. If you allow me to say, and
of course,
this is a not a plug. However, I think you will love reading my book called Mothers and Their Men, because we talk about and we address many of the things that you're sharing from a male point of view. And yeah. I had a lot of mothers that took this. As a matter of fact, I want Cynthia to hurry up and get on. She's her microphone is acting up, but she was one of my moms that took that survey. But with that stated, I know that your kids are still relatively young, but there are a few conversations relative to mothers rearing sons, and a great number of books and conversation about mothers rearing daughters.
Yes.
However, there appears to be a general consensus that women cannot effectively rear sons without a male presence. Would you agree or disagree?
That is such a hard question to answer, because I definitely think that above all, women are capable of doing anything. And I do think that women can raise men because, they've been doing it forever and they continue to do it. But I can't argue with the fact that male presence does bring something different to the table, that no matter what a woman does, we just can't offer that because it's not our perspective. It's not who we are. But I do think that sometimes the absence of a father in the life of a child sometimes make men want to be different because they want to not sort of replicate the cycle. I think they want to be, a better man than the absentee father was, or the father who was only there sometimes, or the father who felt like his main responsibility was only to be a breadwinner and nothing more. So I do think that women can do it. Is it ideal? No. I think the ideal scenario would be for any child to have both a mother and a father in their lives, and not necessarily the mother and dad being together, but each of them contributing as parents for the betterment of the child.
Well, thank you. I'm sure you can see Cynthia's comment. She's having trouble with her microphone, but she's responding to the question. And she's saying, I disagree. My sons were left under my care, even though the father was present, but not always around. Their hygiene, toilet training, teaching them to dress, throw a ball, ride a bike, or drive a car, clean up after themselves, and do chores inside and out. And she's saying here, it doesn't take a man to teach a son how to be a man. I believe when a mother have more responsibility in raising or rearing a son, they become a more passionate and more rational adult. A woman can learn how to be direct with serious matters that sons need to know, but with a more caring approach with empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
I don't know. That makes me think maybe she didn't hear the beginning of what I said, because
no. She wasn't disagreeing with you. She was disagreeing with the question.
With your question. Oh,
yes,
okay.
Yes, she was disagreeing with the question about the general consensus, and that there appears to be a general consensus.
Too, but I just want to make sure she knew that I said the same thing first. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Dr. Vibe, glad you joined us. Encyclopedia Brown, glad you're here. For those of you that know LA, we're awaiting her arrival. And we have another guest, Ms. Cynthia Clark. You will see her comments in the box. She's having difficulty right now with her microphone, but she is definitely putting comments in there. And she's saying, Leah, that she do agree with what you say. And I just want to clear that for our listening audience. Now, generally speaking, would you say that an overwhelming majority of best parenting practice are done by mothers opposed to fathers? Now, be careful with that answer, because Dre is on here, and Dre is a dad ruining his kids. So
I see that. So ask me it again, just to make sure that I'm completely clear on what you're asking me.
Generally speaking, would you say that an overwhelming majority of best parenting practices are done by mothers as opposed to fathers?
Well, I think it depends on what you mean by parenting practices. But what I can say is, I think so. I mean, I generally think that women, mothers in particular, are the ones that kind of set the tone at home in terms of this is the roles and responsibilities that each person's going to play. I told you at the very beginning, my belief really is that in a typical nuclear family, that where you have a mother and a father, not in the case of a single parent, because obviously the dynamics are different, and that single parent has to become both mother and father in one. But when you have this sort of ideal scenario with a mother and a father, yes, I do think it's the mother that sets the tone, because I think the mother is the sun and everyone else orbits around her, but everybody has their part to play and everybody has their role to play. It's just the mom that's kind of like the general executing the orders, and everybody falls in line, including dad. But there are definitely times where mom and dad need to come together. There needs to be consensus. You can't just make unilateral decisions. But like I said, in the ideal equation where you have both parents, yes, I do think the mother is the one who kind of sets the tone or kind of creates the standard for best practices. But obviously in consultation with, in partnership with dad. But yes, it's mom.
Okay. Now, I must be honest with you, Leah. I ask a lot of these questions because I do a lot of research and things about parenting and mothers and sons and all of that. So please do not hold back. Share.
No, I'll be honest. Come on, you should know by now that I don't hold back.
I know you don't. Share what you need. Let me catch this just from Cynthia. Cynthia is saying,
sure.
Today, when mothers are working just as fathers, the responsibility in parenting is done by both. She says, it thrills me to see that the dad is just as much a caregiver today as the mother, and the bond exists between both parents.
Yes, I agree with that. I definitely do.
Well, you know what, ladies? I have one for you coming right here. Now, athletes have become revered for saying, "Hi, Mom," rarely acknowledging their fathers. Now, in your opinions, do you think that mothers have earned that special recognition?
Clearly, I'm biased. So I'm going to, obviously my answer is going to be yes. I think it would be nice maybe if athletes acknowledge both mom and dad. But as I said, also towards the beginning, I do think that moms kind of historically and today, despite sort of the changing roles that parents are playing in the household, moms sort of have that special spot, especially with sons. I mean, there is some truth to daddy, daughter, and mother, son bonds, which isn't to say that a mother can't have a good relationship with her daughter or a father to his son. I think just sort of stereotypically and traditionally, that's been the relationship of, mothers and sons.
Okay. Cynthia, I was trying to see if Cynthia had given us a new one here. Cynthia is saying here, many athletes come from broken homes where the mother is a major role player, keeping them in line for better things and for fulfilling their hopes and dreams. Mothers have the hopes and dreams mothers have for their children. The father's recognition is in the name possible, the breadwinner is the main possible breadwinner, whereas allowing the mother to nurture the child, but the mother's acknowledgement is a thank you of love from the child who reveres themselves by saying, "Hi, Mom." She says, "I appreciate the son giving this to the mom." So I hear some consensus here with the moms. And I know that Dre is here, and Dr. Vibe is here, and Tony is here, and some of the other guys are here along with myself. And it'll be interesting to get their views. I know we're waiting on Laura Ann, and since Cynthia can't come on, I'm saying to Dr. Vibe or Dre, any of those guys, feel free to grab one of those spots. We only need to leave one open, so feel free to jump in and ask any questions that you would like. And so as I move on, Ms. World Traveler. Let's move on here. Documentation tells us, here I go again. Documentation tells us that mothers have physically moved extremely heavy objects to rescue their children from dangerous situations. Now, would you say, besides your creator, that the ability lies deep within the mother's consciousness and can be summoned in a crisis, regardless?
Yes, I do. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I have to apologize, everybody, too. I'm really sick, and I'm doing this because I made a promise. And I do like the topic. But to answer the question, yes, I do think there's a divine spark in mothers, because the proof is in the pudding. Like you said, you see a child in distress, especially your own baby, and you can move mountains, literally. You can pick up a car to get that child that's trapped underneath. You are unafraid to run into a burning house to rescue your child. And again, to reiterate a point I said earlier, mothers always are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for their children, even if that means laying down their own lives. Of course, this is not every single mother. There's definitely cases of terrible mothers, mothers who have murdered their own children for their own personal reasons or whatever. But in general, moving away from those extreme negative cases, yes, I do. I think in a moment when you are full of adrenaline, you're full of that terror, and you're full of the fear of losing the one thing that means the most to you in your whole life, you can do anything. And I think that is something that God, if you guys believe in God, gave you the ability to do. Because you always hear those stories about, the mother who lifted the car up. And if you had asked her to do it on a normal moment when she knew her child was safe, she couldn't have done it. So it's just that divine spark that turns on in a moment. It's like an animal instinct that just, it's innate in us, because even though we're higher order beings, we still are animals. So I think sometimes we tend to ignore those instincts that we have. But when it's a fight or flight kind of situation, the instincts take over, and the abilities that maybe we haven't been able to call on in normal life because society doesn't require it anymore kick in.
Okay. Now, and I apologize again to guys. I have to be the voice of Cynthia. She's having difficulty with her microphone, so I'm having to be her voice. I know you got tired of hearing me, but I'm sorry. Data has been.
It's your show, man.
I know. Data has been compiled that in extreme situations, this is what Cynthia is sharing with us, that in extreme situations, as you described, adrenaline hits with such an impact to do everything possible to rescue their children and bring them to safety. We could, what is she saying here?
Weakness can become giants.
Weakness can become giants.
Yes.
What do you think about that statement?
I mean, I agree with her, except for the weakling part, because I wouldn't say that mothers are weak, period. I mean, I think that we're strong in all ways, and maybe, the advantage I think that men have over women is that you may be more physically powerful, but it's definitely not the case for all men or all women. But I definitely think that I agree with everything else that she says.
Other than being a weakling?
Yes. Because I don't know that strength isn't always necessarily a physical aspect. It's not always a physical characteristic. That's one part of strength, but I think there's a difference between physical strength and strength of will or strength of character. But in terms of physical sex, I know what you meant, Cynthia. I'm messing with you. But yes, she clarified. But yes.
Okay. Well, listen. How instrumental do you feel that
being perceived as a weaker sex?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a question that many moms get the blame for in relationships because of their sons. So I had to ask this question.
Sure.
And the question simply states, how instrumental do you feel that your influence on your son or daughter when he or she chooses a mate will be? Do you feel that your influence is going to be heavy in their selection process, or that it won't matter much?
I think ultimately it won't matter much, because they're going to do what they want to do, and they're going to choose who they want to be with, because I'm teaching my children to trust themselves and trust their own instincts. I think where my influence will come in is shaping their minds now, so that when they're at a point in their lives where seeking those types of relationships are important, they're going to choose the types of partners that will be good for them, not necessarily getting involved with people for the wrong reasons. So what I mean by that is my children are only going to see a loving relationship between their two parents. they're only going to see a man and a woman who work together. And even when we don't get along, we still try to resolve problems together. We communicate with each other. And I want to give them a positive example of what a healthy relationship looks like, so that even though I know ultimately they're going to do what they want to do, they have a template. So hopefully when they get into these relationships, they'll realize, this person is checking my phone. This person is following me. This person is sending me crazy messages. The person is not trusting me when I say I'm with my friends. Then they're going to know that that's unhealthy, because they didn't see that happening between mom and dad. They're going to see if they feel like this person is lying and the way that it makes them feel, because they've seen a positive example from their parents. So I feel like the influence that I have is in showing them what true love looks like, and what a healthy relationship looks like, and what it looks like to be loved and respected by your mate, and in turn giving back that love and respect. So that will be the bar that we're setting for them. So yeah, they're going to make their mistakes, because that's part of growing up. And I'm not saying I want my children hurt. I mean, what parent does? But I kind of feel like I learned more growing up as a kid from the pain and from the mistakes and missteps that I took than sometimes from the successes. And I think that in love, that's no different. But I'm hoping that when they finally make decisions about the person or persons they want to be in long-term relationships with, it will be with someone who treats them with only love and respect, and that accepts them for exactly who they are, just like their parents have done.
Oh, I want to comment on that, but I want to read Cynthia's statement here first. Cynthia is saying here, having them make their choices helps them grow, letting them know that we support them, whatever their choices are, we will respect. I like the words Leah spoke, setting the bar. And that's what I want to address with both of you as we segue to this question. We are, in listening to you and listening to Cynthia, we've all heard that, and it has some research information. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it says that boys look for their moms and girls look for their dads. And so as we talk about healthy relationships, how might you feel that this may be have an effect, I should say, on unhealthy relationships with young ladies? I often counsel young men, and I've worked with situations where we have young men that are abusers. And unfortunately, I know this is a loaded question. Unfortunately, a lot of times the young ladies that are involved.
Do you need to go out?
No. Sorry. A lot of times the young ladies that are involved in the abuse often support and make excuses for the person that's abusing them. So I know that's a 2-3 part question, but can you and Cynthia elaborate on that a little bit? I mean, from your statements, I'm not questioning your statements. I'm just saying
the research statements.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know where to start, but I'll start with the first part of your question, in that I do think there is some truth for some people in that situation, where you will end up with a partner that will give you the same kind of relational dynamic that you observed with your parents and or that you had with your parents. So if you had someone who you felt like you weren't sure how they felt about you because they were absentee, or they only showered you with gifts but never showed you other forms of love, then you never really saw what a healthy relationship would look like. And somehow you'll find yourself in a relationship with someone who is giving you the type of love and care that you know. And unfortunately, if you don't know what healthy relationships and real examples of love look like, I think you are more vulnerable, and more susceptible to being in a relationship with someone who in that way resembles your parent. I don't know that you're actively looking for it, but I think that you don't know what else a relationship could be. So you end up in something that is somewhat familiar. And I think because a lot of times we excuse away the things that we don't want to acknowledge or admit, or the things that we don't want to have to deal with or face, you can be stuck in relationships with people who are just continuing the patterns in your life that were formed when you were a child. And it's sometimes very, very difficult to get out of those patterns in those cycles. In terms of specifically looking for it, I mean, I guess this really varies from individual to individual. Maybe on a subconscious level they are, but I don't think that it's the intention. I think that people genuinely want love. They want to be loved, feel love, experience love, and give it. But if they don't know what that looks like, how can they find it?
Right.
So I think it's hard to break that cycle if you don't know what it is, or if you don't have people in your lives that can help be a mirror to you.
Okay, let's see what Miss Cynthia is talking about here. Wow, I can listen to you ladies all night. I can tell you that. Okay, Cynthia is saying here. Cynthia is saying cycles are established without our consent in abusive relationships. Speaking to these individuals about these matters clearly, our teacher is a tremendous. Our teachers are a tremendous help. Then she also says, love comes in many forms, and sometimes we have to be taught how to love. And
Yeah.
I wish Cynthia's mic was working because I would love to ask her to expound further. I know she can't write everything and type everything in, but as a fellow colleague, would you expound on that a little bit for Cynthia? I think.
Sure. I mean, I think I know where she's going with it, and I agree with her. I do think that it's not impossible for people to unlearn cycles of relationships that aren't loving. And I think that it is possible to love and learn how to love and be in a loving relationship. And like Cynthia said, it can be taught. So I just think that you have to be open to potentially realizing that the relationships that you've been in aren't loving ones, and be able to recognize the signs and understand what a loving relationship looks like versus one that does not. And if that means turning to clergy or teachers or friends, loved ones, counselors to get that insight, then that's something that I think should be promoted and that people should definitely do, because I don't think that enough of us are willing to see that. And sometimes the easier thing to do is to just settle. And I think a lot of people just settle and accept whatever is in front of them instead of really knowing what they deserve and knowing their own worth. And a lot of that sometimes is because of cycles that they've experienced as a youngster, as a child growing up. You know, they've watched the way their mother was treated, and then on some level, they think that that's how they should be treated, because that's how their mother was treated. So why would they be any different or any better? And that's cyclical thinking, and that's where you get trapped. So I think that's kind of where she was going.
Okay, listen. Allow me to address Tony's statement, because I think that it works well with what we're talking about, and it needs to be touched upon. Now, Tony is saying in most cases, children who have a single parent, most children grow up with issues of distrust and low self-esteem because the parent either kills them with kindness or they go the other extreme and not show any love or concern at all.
Yeah.
And would you agree or disagree? This is now a debate, obviously.
Yeah, no.
With Tony's statement, would you agree or disagree?
Well, I mean, without knowing what that feels like, because I'm not an only child, or, you know, and I didn't grow up in a single family home. I mean, I had both of my parents, though they did later divorce, but I was already in college. So I think the formative years were already past me. I definitely can see where there would be possibility for those sort of feelings to arise, because I think that children lack experience and they lack context. So they don't understand what's going on between mommy and daddy has nothing to do with them. And so they take it on themselves, they blame themselves. And even if their parents are talking to them about it and trying to communicate, children just automatically feel like this sense of responsibility for things that are happening, even if they have nothing to do with it, because that's just the way we're made. And so I think that, you know, Tony is right that some parents' response is to just kill them with kindness and buy anything, but it's hollow and it's empty because it's not a real connection. It's just things. And you think that having these things will distract the child from the real situation, or they go to the other extreme and they just try to cut off their feelings, because unfortunately in those scenarios, the parents are just trying to take care of themselves and they can't think beyond themselves, and they're unable to care for this innocent who is caught in the crosshairs between them. And so I definitely can see where those types of things would happen. And I definitely feel like, you know, in my own life where I did grow up with two parents in the household, I've said before on the Dr. Vibe show that I'm biracial and my biological father has never been a part of my life. And even though I had someone in my life since I was a baby who raised me as his own, I always wondered why my biological didn't bother. Why didn't he care? Why weren't we involved? Why wasn't he a part of my life? Why didn't he stick around? And I feel like kids, especially in a single parent situation, probably feel that much more acutely. And I think that it stays with them because it's not just, it's every day. Every day when their parent doesn't show up, to pick them up after school, every day when they don't come to an activity, every milestone that they're not there for. And just buying them a gift doesn't replace your presence in that child's life. There's nothing that can replace that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Cynthia is also sharing with us, is that she's saying here, at times it is hard to let the pendulum swing too far to the wrong side. And she says that she sees too many gifts being given rather than understanding and guidance. And I think that we all can attest to that or speak to that issue. So, I won't prolong it because you've given an excellent answer. Now,
thank you.
Ladies, I have a question for you. I think all of you have daughters. And that question, in your opinion, is the lack of chivalry and respect a deal breaker when it comes to approval of a mate for your daughter?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the chivalry is dead just because we're in the 21st century and everybody says that we're equal. I definitely think it can go a long way. But at the same time, I also don't think that I think it would be wrong if I had the expectation that a man should hold open the door for my daughter and then she in turn doesn't, open a door for him sometimes too. Or, he opens the car door for her, she should immediately be leaning over to pop open the door for him. So, I mean, I'm going to teach my children that it's a two-way street. And I think there are little ways that a man can show a woman chivalry without it becoming like a sexist issue or, dealing with, emasculation of him or, somehow belittling her. But I definitely think it can be a two-way thing. And I think that women can show men chivalry too. But I definitely think that it does speak to a larger issue though. Like if a man isn't thinking enough about my daughter, since you brought daughters up specifically, to be courteous enough to, if he sees that she's shivering and she doesn't have a jacket on, she's trying to look cute for him, if he's not offering his jacket to her, that's a deal breaker. Because to me, that's a sign that he may be like that in other ways that are more serious. So, I think there's little signs that we overlook and ignore because we're smitten or we think that he's cute or we like him, that by the time you realize how really bad and awful this person is, you feel like it's too late. You've already invested. So to me, I think it can be a deal breaker depending on what the thing is.
Wow. Shannon says, please allow me to say this, Leah. I know that you can see her comments, some of our guests here, and Shannon is saying chivalry gets no love in 2019, but there are people who desire it and those who show it, and which is I'm sure is very strong. And so I appreciate that comment that you're sharing with us. And Cynthia is saying that I agree with you. Chivalry is not dead, but it may not be awakened just yet. There may come a time when my daughter needs to be protected or justified by their mate, and I expect them to maintain her honor. Respect for my daughter is foremost and can usually be detected in the first meeting. I would dissuade furthering the relationship. So am I to assume as a male that you ladies are, bless you, that you ladies are in consensus, and that even though you, Shannon and Cynthia, have all three expressed that chivalry is not dead. Shannon is saying that it gets no love in 2019. However, whether it gets love or not, it is something that's expected in a relationship.
Yeah, and I like Tony's comment too, though. He's saying that he thinks chivalry is dead because pride and independence has killed it. And I think there is some truth to that. But I do think, like, for instance, I consider myself highly independent person. And I don't necessarily need a man to hold the door open for me. But if he chooses to do that, I accept it because I think that he's just being chivalrous. He's showing me courtesy by opening the door for me or, holding it open or whatever. And I'm not going to be angry with him for doing that to me. Like, I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that just because he's doing it for me, he thinks I can't do it for myself. I think that people sometimes don't accept kindness anymore. I think people are becoming way too sensitive and becoming way too taking everything personally instead of just being like, the guy just held the door open. He's not making a statement. He's not saying that he thinks that you can't do it for yourself. He's just got there first. He happened to open it. He sees you moving in the same direction. Go through the door. Like, it's not a big deal. But it's, I think it's really becoming more of an individual thing too, like how people perceive it. But so I'm open to it, but I don't expect it. And that way I think that takes the pressure off of men to feel like they still have to be that way.
Yes.
But if they want to be, I'm not going to take it any kind of a way. But I think, and here's the but, I would expect that he accepts it from me if I wish to return the favor. If I happen to make it to the door first and I open it, I don't need to play that game of, no, you go first. No, you go first. If I'm at the door first and I held it open, walk on through the door. It's no big deal. Yay.
Looks like you. Hey, Cynthia, got it. Thank you, Cynthia.
She made it. Good.
Listen, listen, Leah. I know that you pull no punches, so I noticed you hesitated just for a second before you said through the door. Was there something, another adjective or something you wanted to add?
Maybe could have been. I could have added an adjective there to make my point, but I think it was clear enough. I didn't need to go there.
Okay, Cynthia, it's so great to see you. We're glad you're here. Now you can speak for yourself. So I want to ask you and Leah a question, and I have to ask this question because as I'm listening to how Leah is expressing herself and Shannon's answer and my answer as well, I have a question as a male. And this may sound condescending and it may sound cocky, but I have to ask. Why is it, and I know you can't answer for all women, when there are those of us that are courteous and still exercise chivalry, that women think you're trying to flirt with them rather than accepting your kindness?
Why is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's a big question. But a lot of people think, especially other women, they think that you're trying to impose upon their man in their space. Sometimes they do not like giving you access to the outer core of their man. So they take offense to someone who they may think is flirting, even though you're just trying to be responsive, be questionative, and just trying to get to know that person as a person.
Yeah, I guess I would say for me that I think it really depends on the woman herself, because my problem throughout my younger years before I was very much married was that I didn't know when men were flirting with me, because I didn't assume that just because they held the door open for me that it was because they wanted to talk to me or get my number or something. I thought they were just being nice. And so I would just keep it moving. I would say thank you and go on about my way. And half the time I didn't know that they were interested or they were trying to show a little something nice to me to maybe get my attention so that they could talk to me or something. So I really think it's sort of like an individual thing. I do think some women are going to think that you're trying to maybe open the door literally and figuratively to talk to her and get a connection. Whereas other women are going to just be like, like Cynthia said, you're just being kind and responsive and you held the door open for me. So I just think it really is an individual thing. And I think a lot of it is based on prior experience and prior knowledge. So maybe in the case of the women who assume that you're flirting, maybe a man in the past did the same move and was flirting. So that's her basis for comparison. That's her foundation. So that's her assumption. And like you said, you don't want to seem cocky, but maybe the woman is being cocky thinking you want to get with her.
Okay.
Right? So I think that can work both ways, because I do think a lot of women expect or think that if a man is doing those things, well, he must be interested, because why else would he do it? So they're questioning the motivation. So I think that's a hard question to answer, but it's usually somewhere along that spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, allow me, as we start to wind this thing down, to offer that extra window. I don't think LA is going to make it this late. So if she hadn't made it already, I don't think she'll be here. So any of you guys, Dre, Dr. Vibe, any of you guys want to grab that spot, please feel free to grab it. Now, guys, listen, I have to ask this question. What is the one thing that you would prefer your son or your daughter do differently than you did at the same? I don't know how old your children are, and I'm asking you to reveal that. But, we all go through various stages of life. But is there one thing that you are observing now from your children that you remember from your childhood that you would prefer your son or your daughter do differently than what you did at the age they are now?
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Okay. Well, I've had 5, and they're different stages in life right now. So the biggest thing I would like to see them do is continue pursuing their education, because that's something that was not promoted when I was their age. They're still in their young 20s, and teens. So even though they're babies, they're still grown women. So I have to give them that. But taking advantage of the education opportunities would be better. In my time, we were raised to kind of be mothers, so that was our lot in life, to raise families. Whereas now there's much more opportunity to pursue an education and get a career and get that going before they start the families. And that's what I'm trying to get them to see, that would be the best. So that's what I would have liked to have been different. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Miss Leah.
Well, excuse me. As you noted earlier, mine are still on the young side. So, elementary school age. So I don't know how they're going to be when they get older, when they start getting things like hormones and starting to get attractions and those kinds of things. But I can say, I guess at this age, what I would wish for them is that they don't rush to grow up. Don't rush to be like all the other kids or be like the cool kids or the big kids, because I think childhood is such a precious time in our lives, and it's such a short, brief moment in our lives. We get to spend most of our lives as adults and adulting. And we already know that adulting isn't always fun. It can be really difficult. So I feel like while you have this opportunity to be kids, fully be kids. Do all the silly things, go have fun, have the slumber parties, play, games, do sports. Just be silly and know that it's okay. Because I remember being a little girl and I was very much a child, in every way possible. But I was so in a rush to be a big girl. I wanted to be grown up, and I wanted to, I don't know why. I just was in a rush to be older. And even though I don't have any issues with aging, I actually am excited about all phases of life. I just think now, looking back, I had such a beautiful childhood, and I'm doing my best to provide that to my kids, that I just really want them to sink in every moment of this wonderful time in their lives. Because I think it goes by, like I said, it's fleeting, it's quick, and then we can only look back at it with nostalgia. And so while they're in it, I really want them to love it and just stay there for as long as they can.
Okay. Listen, as guys, we're getting ready to close, but I do want to give Cynthia the opportunity, if you want to revisit one or two quick issues that you didn't have an opportunity to speak for yourself, and I had to be your mouthpiece. If there were one or two things you want to revisit, please feel free.
Well, I think there was something, the definition of a mother. Okay. This is all about being a mother. Whether you're young, whether you're middle-aged, you're just starting out, or you've had several grandchildren under your belt like I have. A mother would be a courageous female who nurtures and raises the child into adulthood and contains and holds on to the morals and values that you instill. So that, to me, wraps up what a mother would be. And that would be any person of any age, as long as they instill those values and morals in their children, whether they're sons or daughters, that's what a mother would be.
Okay. Last question I have, ladies. Why does moms?
I already know something coming.
Yeah. Why does moms always apologize when the kid messes up? Why do moms take on that albatross? Can you help me with that one?
Cynthia, you want to take this?
I will say first that it's not wrong to say I'm sorry. So if we're going to say, I'm sorry, you misunderstood that. That's not what I meant. I'm sorry that you took that the wrong way. You're apologizing. You're getting it out of the way so that they know it's okay to make a mistake. We're not perfect, and we're going to make mistakes. So knowing that you're telling your child that I'm sorry, wish it could have been done differently, or whatever the excuse or rational reason behind it, letting them know that it's okay. You can make a mistake, just go forward, move from that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I do think that it's okay to say that you're sorry if you genuinely are. But I think my reaction to your question is that I think sometimes mothers respond for the bad behavior of their children because, number one, they're embarrassed by it. And I think they take it personally, like somehow the child's mistakes are a reflection of their parenting. So I think they take it as sort of like a direct, oh my gosh, your child acted out, your child did this terrible thing, and somehow that's your fault because you either didn't do this or you did too much of that or whatever. And I think moms, we do take it personally because it is a direct reflection of our caring and nurturing. Obviously, we've raised them to be their own people and they're going to make their own choices. But I just think it's sort of imprinted in us as mothers that somehow we either failed our child or we didn't do something right or we did, we just go on and on and on. And that's one of the things that I think most mothers do is we kind of obsess sometimes about our children and the decisions that they're making or the mistakes, things that they've done. And we take it personally, even though I think we know, in the end, yes, we are raising them to be independent people, to have their own minds and make their own decisions. But I think that's probably why, because I think moms take some of the ownership for the mistake of their children because they blame themselves partially.
Okay. Ladies, anything that you ladies would like to share before we end this? Because it's certainly been very interesting to me, and you certainly have opened my eyes. And I have so many more questions I want to ask, but I don't want to keep you all night. So are there any questions or comments that you'd like to share that you feel like we need to discuss?
Well, if you want answers to whatever questions you want to put forth, then I think you can email them. We'll probably try our best to respond to those. I appreciate the
I won't do that to you.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here and among your panel discussion and to be able to meet Leah and talk with her, and to you, Melvin, and good luck on the rest of your books.
Well, thank you very much. Ms. Leah, earlier we introduced you, so before you comment, give me a second to reintroduce Cynthia. She wasn't here, somebody
sure,
just
go ahead.
Here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Ms. Cynthia is a councilwoman in the great metropolis of Morrisport, Louisiana. She's a graduate of Louisiana State University, Shreveport, and she's the head librarian. She works for the Shreveport Public Library. So we just wanted to give her a proper introduction. And as she's already stated, she's a mom. So I just kind of wanted to back up and do that for Ms. C. Clark. And we're happy that you're a guest also. Now, Ms. Leah, any closing comments you want to make before you tell us about you and how we can contact you?
Sure, absolutely. I feel like this is a conversation that I would love to talk about anytime, all the time, and anytime anyone will let me, because as I said earlier, there's no guidebook. There's no blueprint for being a good parent or being a good mom. And so, I'm trying to share my experiences with others as I go through it. And I'm always seeking mentors and opportunities to learn as I go forward, because my kids are still on the young side. So I don't know what I'm facing going forward. So I definitely believe in the adage that it takes a village, because it really does. So, I know there's a lot that I can learn from both mothers and fathers. And I definitely think we need to share these things with each other, and we need to pull together as a community to raise the best next generation that we can. And so I guess I just say all that to say that, don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it. Don't be afraid to seek the answers. Don't be afraid to seek advice, and know that you will make mistakes, but that's okay as long as you pick yourself up the next day and try again and learn that it's okay to say sorry. And, like I said, there's no perfect solution to parenting. And I don't know. I think that, as much as I want to avoid the mistakes my parents made, I know that I'm going to make mistakes of my own, but I just keep trying to do the best that I can. And that's really all I think anyone can ask of any parent.
Okay. Yeah. Can you tell our audience how they can contact you? I know they're interested in contacting you, so we don't want to disappoint them.
Of course not. So when I'm more healthy and I can talk and I have to constantly do gross things, you can reach me across the internet at Leah World Traveler. That's LIA World Traveler. I'm Leah World Traveler on Facebook and Instagram. And on Twitter, you can find me at Leah World Travels. I'll type everything into the box in a moment. You can also find me at Urban Intellectuals. That's LIA at urbanintellectuals.com. And you can email me at Leah at leahworldtraveler.com. And I'm always around. And thank you again, Melvin, for having me on this show. I'm so glad that we did. I really love this topic, like I said, and it was wonderful meeting Cynthia. I love everything that she had to say, and I love her point of view. So it was a pleasure meeting her and meeting you, Cynthia, and having this conversation. And you must see how much I care, considering how sick I am.
Yeah, I know it's dear to your heart. Yes, it's a topic we can never really outplay.
Exactly.
Well, Leah, we certainly want to thank you, and I appreciate you being the brave soldier that you are, because you as the old people just say, toughen it up. You toughened it up and came ahead anyway, and
right.
Listen, you've done a dynamic job, and we most certainly at another date can continue this conversation to get some more things out there.
Yeah.
Most certainly. Ms. Cynthia, will you tell the people how they can contact you, please?
Yes. Well, my email, I can type it in also, is clarkcynthia5@gmail.com. And you can also contact me at the Morningsport Library, Street Memorial Library. I'm here 5 days a week. 318-996-6720. Of course, I don't have a business email for councilman yet, but I'm working on it.
Okay. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for joining us. Dr. Dre, it's always a pleasure, brother, to have you here with us. Big Bad Brad, Shannon. Well, we all know the captain is Dr. Vibe. So, Dr. Vibe, we're happy that you're here, brother. Brother Cliff, and of course Cynthia. And let me say that it's a pleasure having these two lovely young ladies on. And I just simply want to say I am the nobody asked me guy. And I just want to encourage each and every one of you to make sure, if you want to talk more about families and parents, get this book. Mothers and Their Men, an introspective look at mothers rearing sons, is hot off the presses, and you need to have this book. You can contact me at www.dyingonmyfeet.com, www.dyingonmyfeet.com. Once you get there, you will find all of my social media contacts, the Instagrams and the Facebook and the LinkedIn. You'll find it all there. So I'll just give that information to you. And also, I'm not above receiving telephone calls. I'm not that important. Now, I may get a message and call you back, but I'm not above receiving telephone calls. But you can contact me at 440-935-0374, 440-935-0374. And again, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you for joining us, and be on the lookout again for Leah, and we want to have Cynthia back as well next week. If you're not too busy, actually tomorrow, if you are into thrillers and all of that thing, if you watch Murder Chose Me, it's just premiered its third season last night. We are going to have none other than Brother Rodney Demery, the Murder Chose Me guy. So Rodney Demery is going to be, I'm doing a special show tomorrow night because, as you know, May is Mother's Month and we've been doing our moms. But tomorrow we're going to have Brother Rodney Demery. Now, next week, we will have with us Ms. Princess Piggy, who is the international missionary president of the CME Church, is going to be with us. Ms. Denise Gildon, who is a retired banker, and Ms. Flora Jenkins, who is the CEO, educator of the Michigan Independent School District, as far as getting teachers, etc. So we have a great lineup coming for you. And then in June, it's going to be Our Fathers. So Dre, get ready. We'll certainly be expecting you to be on, brother. And we have some others. So guys, listen, have a great night. We appreciate you being here. And I'm saying publicly, Leah, so your husband won't come after me, is that I certainly plan on talking to you again and getting some things going with what we're doing.
Excellent.
So guys, it's been great. We appreciate you being here. Everyone have a great and blessed night.
Thank you, Melvin.
Leah, thank you.
Nice, Cynthia. Thank you.
Bye-bye.